I don't want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won Album of the Year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work. Think about that. The most Grammys, never won Album of the Year. That doesn't work. You know, some of you gonna go home tonight and feel like you've been robbed. Some of you may get robbed. Some of you don't belong in the category. Oh, no, that was it. No, when I get nervous, I tell the truth.
For years, Jay-Z has carefully and deliberately built one of the most powerful public images in the entire entertainment industry. To millions of fans around the world, he is the ultimate success story. A music icon, a business mogul, and a devoted family man all rolled into one. But what if there is another side to this story that the public has never fully been allowed to see? Lately, the internet has been buzzing with claims that Blue Ivy may have revealed something, perhaps unintentionally, that has people looking at her father in a completely different light. Are fans reading too much into the situation? Or did one unexpected moment expose a truth that was never meant to come out? Stay tuned, because the deeper people dig into this story, the more questions begin to surface. How proud are you of Blue Ivy? Very, dad of 3, Jay-Z, on the cover of GQ, revealing exactly what he thinks about Blue Ivy's future. I think it's all a part of being creative. You just create, and when you truly love creating, it doesn't matter what the pipeline looks like or what form it takes. Jay adds that it makes him proud that she fought for something she genuinely wanted to do. He doesn't think they will ever be able to get her off that stage now. It was always a musical family, but did he ever think it would turn into this? Absolutely not. They support each other through everything. For 4 years, I have been screaming not just about Diddy, but about Diddy and Jay-Z both being monsters. And the machine that creates victims just kept right on going. My son, because he was my son, was targeted. He was targeted because of who his father is. He was working on his EP. I bought Philadelphia for him so he would not have to sign to a label, because I already knew what signing would do to him. He interned at Roc Nation, and they approached him and asked him to sacrifice me. I saw it when he was 19 years old. I moved us out of there to stop it, to prevent it, to avoid it entirely. But they take them anyway, just to show you the full extent of what they are capable of. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, it is important to be very clear that Blue Ivy never actually came out and exposed her father. She never said anything of the sort. But that has not stopped the internet from doing exactly what it does best, analyzing absolutely everything down to the last frame. It all started after one of Blue Ivy's recent public appearances began circulating online. At first glance, it seemed completely normal. She looked confident, comfortable in the spotlight, and far more mature than the little girl so many people still picture from years ago. But as the clips started spreading across social media, fans began paying close attention to something else. It was not what she said. It was not even what she did. According to many viewers, it was the way she carried herself around her parents, particularly around Jay-Z. Beyonce was quite the doting mother to Blue Ivy Carter at the premiere of Mufasa. Blue played the role of Kiara, the daughter of Queen Nala, who was voiced by Beyonce herself. Almost immediately, comment sections filled up with people claiming they noticed subtle moments that felt unusual and out of place. Some believed Blue Ivy appeared more independent than ever before, while others argued that people were reading far too deeply into perfectly ordinary family interactions. As usual, social media was split right down the middle. Still, the conversation refused to die down. The more people watched the clips, the more theories started appearing out of nowhere. Before long, old interviews, red carpet appearances, and intimate family moments from years gone by were being dug up and examined frame by frame. Suddenly, fans were not just talking about one viral moment anymore. They were talking about a much bigger picture. And that is where things got genuinely interesting, because once people started revisiting the past, they began asking questions they had never thought to ask before. Questions about Jay-Z's public image. Questions about how carefully and methodically the family manages everything the public gets to see. And most importantly, questions about whether Blue Ivy's growing confidence and visibility might eventually bring more attention to things the family has spent years keeping completely private. Trust me when I say this is only where the story begins. What has really got people talking was not a single comment or one shocking revelation. It was the simple but undeniable fact that Blue Ivy seems like an entirely different person from the little girl the public watched grow up from a distance. If I told my younger self that I was going to be in a movie, I would never believe it. And well, you are, girl. You are. Seeing Blue as Kiara and hearing her voice come out of that character. Give me a second, because I still cannot believe that is my baby. It was really hard to focus and do my job after that. I had to stop and say, wait, hold up, everyone. You have got to give me a moment. I need to digest this. I am so proud of her. Over the last few years, she has become much more visible to the world. Whether she is performing on stage alongside Beyonce, attending major events, or simply appearing in public with her parents, there has been a very noticeable shift in how she presents herself. She is more confident, more at ease in front of cameras, and increasingly stepping into a spotlight that belongs entirely to her. And that is exactly why people started paying such close attention. For years, Blue Ivy was heavily protected from public scrutiny. The family rarely shared anything about her personal life, and when they did, it was always carefully and deliberately on their own terms. But now that she is getting older, fans are naturally becoming more and more curious about who she really is and what her perspective on things might be. That is where the internet did what it always does. It started reading between every line it could find. Some fans began going back through old clips and interviews, claiming that Blue Ivy occasionally appeared far more aware of the spotlight than most people had ever realized. Others pointed to moments where she seemed surprisingly mature for her age, especially when interacting with adults at high-profile events. Of course, none of that proves a single thing. And in fact, a large number of people believe that social media is simply overanalyzing completely normal behavior. But as we all know by now, once a theory starts gaining traction online, it tends to grow fast and spread wide. Before long, the discussion was not really about Blue Ivy anymore. It had become entirely about Jay-Z, because as people started examining her public appearances more closely, they also started looking much more carefully at the image Jay-Z has spent decades meticulously constructing. And that is where the entire conversation took a completely different turn. As discussions about Blue Ivy continued spreading across every platform imaginable, people did not just start revisiting old family moments. They started revisiting Jay-Z himself. And once that happened, a great deal of old controversy suddenly found its way back into the conversation. One of the biggest topics people brought back up was Jay-Z's longtime friendship with Diddy. The two have been seen together countless times over the years, attending the same events, collaborating in business circles, and moving within many of the same powerful celebrity networks. So when Diddy's legal troubles exploded into the headlines, it was only natural that some people began asking who else had been connected to those same circles over the years. At the same time, others pointed directly to the lawsuit that made major headlines in late 2024, where Jay-Z was named alongside Diddy in allegations that quickly dominated every corner of entertainment news. Jay-Z strongly and publicly denied every single accusation and later pursued legal action against those involved. But regardless of where people stood on the validity of those claims, the situation put his name back into the very center of public discussion in a way that had not happened for years. We have some breaking news to bring you right now. We have just learned that the civil case accusing Sean Combs and Sean Jay-Z Carter involving a 13-year-old has been dismissed today, according to a new court filing. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, released a statement reading, "The false case against Jay-Z that never should have been brought has been dismissed with prejudice. By standing up in the face of heinous and false allegations, Jay has done what very few people can. He pushed back. He never settled. He never paid a single penny. He triumphed, and he has been cleared." Then came the internet theories. As so often happens online, people started digging through old photographs, event appearances, and celebrity connections. Some users began discussing reported links between powerful entertainment figures and a notorious financier connected to the Epstein files. To be absolutely clear, much of this conversation was driven entirely by online speculation rather than any proven facts whatsoever. But that did not stop people from connecting dots and constructing their own elaborate theories. And that is what truly made this moment feel different from anything before it. It was not just one controversy being discussed in isolation. It was multiple conversations happening all at the same time, feeding into each other and growing together. Old friendships were being re-examined. Past headlines were being revisited. Long-forgotten interviews were suddenly resurfacing. And because Blue Ivy's name had become intertwined with the discussion, some fans began looking at the Carter family through a completely different lens than they ever had before. Whether any of those theories actually carry real weight is an entirely separate question. But one thing became absolutely certain. Once people started revisiting Jay-Z's past, they found far more to talk about than they had originally expected. What makes me so proud, and I still get goosebumps every time I see her walk onto that stage, is that Blue has been born into this world without asking for any of it. She has been in the public eye since the very day she was born. Everyone has had an opinion about her, even down to how a little girl chooses to wear her hair. So for her to stand on that stage and reclaim her power, and the song is called My Power, you truly cannot write a better story than that. And then watching her grow into it, knowing she came out in front of 80,000 people at just 11 years old. She was nervous, I know her, so I know how nervous she really was, even if it did not show. She wanted to do it more than anything, and she worked for it every single day. She had a little ice pack on her back on some of those days from how hard she was pushing herself. Some people saw a smart businessman doing everything in his power to protect his family's privacy. Others believed there was far more happening behind the scenes than the public could ever fully realize. Whether those theories hold any real weight is another story entirely. But one thing became undeniably clear. The conversation had moved well beyond Blue Ivy's viral appearance. People were no longer just talking about her. They were questioning everything they thought they already knew about the Carter family's carefully protected world. And once that door cracked open, it led people to start revisiting some very old moments that many had assumed were long forgotten. As the conversation kept growing online, fans started revisiting one particular moment that had generated enormous discussion at the time, the Grammy Awards. During Jay-Z's acceptance speech, viewers noticed that Beyonce and Blue Ivy appeared to get up and leave their seats while he was still speaking. Almost immediately, social media went into full detective mode. Now, to be completely fair, there could have been an entirely reasonable and normal explanation. Award shows are notoriously long events. People get up and move around all the time, and no one involved ever suggested there was any kind of issue or tension. But that did not stop the internet from spinning theory after theory. Within hours, clips of the moment were spreading across TikTok, X, and YouTube simultaneously. Some viewers claimed the timing felt strange and deliberate. Others argued that people were making an enormous deal out of absolutely nothing at all. As usual, the internet could not come to any agreement. What made the moment stand out even more was the fact that it happened during a speech where Jay-Z openly and boldly criticized the Recording Academy, pointing out plainly that despite Beyonce being one of the most decorated artists in Grammy history, she had still never won Album of the Year. The speech quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the entire evening. And because cameras were constantly cutting back to the audience, fans began analyzing every reaction, every expression, and every movement they could find. Before long, people were not just talking about the speech anymore. They were talking about Blue Ivy. Some fans pointed out how composed and confident she looked throughout the entire event, while others noted that she seemed increasingly comfortable existing in her own spotlight, rather than simply being known as Jay-Z and Beyonce's daughter. Blue is a hard worker. She is very organized. She is a boss, a little boss already. Jay-Z also shared one of her more hidden talents, revealing that she is a remarkable pianist and that she has perfect pitch, meaning she can identify any musical note simply by hearing it. After all, she is already one of the youngest Grammy winners in history. Of course, None of this proves anything on its own. But once the clips started circulating, they became yet another piece of content for people to pull apart and analyze. In today's social media landscape, sometimes just a few seconds of footage is all it takes to launch 1,000 completely different theories. And that was exactly what happened here. The more people discussed the Grammys moment, the more they began viewing the Carter family through an entirely different lens. And that only made the conversation grow louder and more widespread. The truly interesting part is that there was not one single interview or reveal that sparked all of this attention. Instead, it was a gradual accumulation of moments. A comment here, a family interaction there, a red carpet appearance that people had long since forgotten about. When viewed individually, none of them seemed particularly shocking or significant. But when social media started weaving everything together into one massive narrative, people began wondering if they were seeing a side of this family that they had never truly noticed before. Of course, not everyone was convinced. Many people argued that fans were simply overanalyzing perfectly ordinary moments and inflating them into something far bigger than they were ever meant to be. And honestly, that is a completely fair and reasonable point. The internet has a well-documented habit of constructing entire theories from only a handful of seconds of footage. But regardless of where people stood on the matter, one thing was impossible to deny: the conversation was not slowing down. If anything, it was getting bigger by the day. Because the more people revisited these old moments, the more another question began emerging repeatedly. If everyone was suddenly talking about Jay-Z and Blue Ivy, where exactly was Beyonce in all of this? And that is when the spotlight began shifting toward the one person many believe has always been the quiet, immovable force holding everything together behind the scenes. For years, Beyonce and Jay-Z have been one of the most carefully and deliberately managed couples in the entire history of entertainment. Despite being perpetually in the public eye, they have somehow managed to keep the majority of their family life intensely private. That is precisely why, whenever a discussion about the Carter family starts gaining traction, people naturally begin looking toward Beyonce for any clues they can find. What many fans have consistently noticed is that Beyonce has always been fiercely and unconditionally protective of her children, especially Blue Ivy. From carefully limiting media exposure when Blue was very young, to maintaining strict control over every public appearance, she has made it consistently clear that the family will reveal only and exactly what they choose to reveal, nothing more. And that is precisely why some people find the recent attention around Blue Ivy so fascinating and worth paying attention to. Beyonce's youngest daughter, Rumi, made her very first stage appearance during the Cowboy Carter tour, and she was seen waving enthusiastically to the crowd with the biggest smile anyone had ever seen on her face. She was so overwhelmed with excitement that her older sister Blue Ivy reportedly had to calm her down and pull her clothes. However, by the next show, fans noticed just how much calmer and more relaxed Rumi appeared compared to that first electrifying experience, and people jokingly assumed she had simply gotten bored between performances. Many fans found it absolutely hilarious that she already seemed completely over it after just a few shows, and her sudden nonchalant energy became one of the more entertaining running jokes across social media. Unlike before, Blue Ivy is no longer simply appearing beside her parents as a background presence. She is actively developing her own public identity. Whether she is performing on stage, attending major events, or interacting directly with fans, she is becoming her own distinct person rather than being viewed solely and exclusively as Beyonce and Jay-Z's daughter. That shift has led some fans to genuinely wonder whether maintaining the family's carefully controlled public image will become progressively more difficult as she grows older. Not because she is intentionally trying to reveal anything, but simply because children inevitably develop their own voices, perspectives, and ways of engaging with the world around them. Of course, that is completely natural and entirely normal. But in the world of celebrity families, even the most natural and ordinary growth can ignite endless speculation. And that is exactly what has happened here. Because while some people looked at recent events and simply saw a confident young woman stepping into her own well-deserved spotlight, Others began constructing theories about what her growing independence might mean for the family's future image and carefully guarded privacy. Suddenly, TikTok videos, Reddit threads, and comment sections everywhere were overflowing with people claiming that her recent appearances had somehow revealed more than they were ever intended to. Some viewers became genuinely convinced that certain interactions between Blue Ivy and Jay-Z carried a deeper, hidden meaning. Others argued that people were simply and unfairly projecting their own preconceptions and desires onto completely ordinary family moments. And honestly, that is what made the entire debate so compelling and impossible to ignore. Nobody could agree on what they were actually watching. One side believed that Blue Ivy's growing independence was causing people to view the family in a fundamentally different way. The other side insisted the internet was manufacturing a full-blown conspiracy out of nothing but thin air. Every new clip seemed to produce two entirely different and equally passionate interpretations. What truly fueled the ongoing conversation was the fact that Blue Ivy has reached an age where she is no longer standing silently beside her parents, letting them do all the talking. She is speaking more, appearing more frequently, and showing more of her true personality to the world. Naturally, fans are paying closer attention than they ever have before. The problem, if you can call it that, is that once people start looking for hidden meanings, they inevitably start finding them absolutely everywhere they look. For years, fans believed that Beyonce had strict unwritten rules for her daughter when it came to public appearances. Blue could dance freely and expressively all she wanted, but she was never to sing, and she was always to cover her mouth. Some fans even joked that Blue Ivy might be mute, given that no one outside the family had ever actually heard her speak. Unlike Rumi, who is well known for her cheerful and expressive stage presence, Blue had always remained vocally mysterious to the public. But that particular rumor was finally and definitively put to rest when a fan actually got the chance to interview Blue Ivy directly, and she spoke. Her calm, measured, and remarkably confident voice immediately shut down every last piece of speculation and left the entire internet completely and utterly stunned. A smile becomes a signal. A glance becomes a clue. A perfectly normal interaction suddenly becomes undeniable evidence of something much larger and more significant. Before long, the theories had shifted away from being about Blue Ivy herself and had become entirely about what people believe she represents. To some, she was simply growing up, naturally, beautifully, and completely on her own terms. To others, she symbolized a future in which the Carter family's meticulously protected image might become increasingly and inevitably harder to control and contain. So, what do you think? Was this entire situation blown wildly out of proportion by social media? Or is there a legitimate reason so many people suddenly started looking at the Carter family in a completely different way? Are fans simply watching Blue Ivy grow into her own person? Or has her growing confidence and visibility caused people to start asking questions they never thought to ask before? And when it comes to Jay-Z's carefully and deliberately crafted public image, is the internet actually uncovering something genuinely meaningful? Or is it simply creating an elaborate mystery in a place where absolutely none exists? One thing is absolutely certain. This conversation is not going away anytime soon. As more clips resurface and more theories continue to spread across every corner of the internet, people will keep digging for answers, whether those answers are actually out there waiting to be found or not. But now, we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know exactly where you stand on this entire situation. And if you enjoyed this, do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss the next story. Trust me, this will not be the last time the internet has something to say about the Carters.